So yesterday, there was a vote in the General Assembly. It was pretty overwhelming, and the president came in and made his remarks, saying that Israel is losing international support. Specifically, or one of the reasons for indiscriminate bombing. So, I want to know, one, what does the administration think about the overwhelming nature of this vote yesterday? And two, does the State Department in particular share the president's view that Israel has been indiscriminately bombing?
Let me take them in order. So first, with respect to the vote, I would say it's not the first time that Israel has not done well in a vote in the UN. You've seen the UN take a number of votes, oftentimes by fairly dramatic margins with respect to Israel, when we have disagreed with the outcome of those votes. So this is not the first time that has happened. I would think what you can take away from that vote, though, is that it is clear that the world wants this conflict to end, which is a goal that we share. We want this conflict to end. We don't want to see it go on a day longer than is necessary. But we also don't think that stopping the campaign right now and allowing the plotters of the October 7th attacks to continue to operate, to continue to command fighters, to continue to sit in their tunnels, stockpiling weapons and maintaining the ability to continue to launch terrorist attacks against Israel is in the long-term security interests of anyone in the region. We think that the October 7th attacks should have been a wake-up call to everyone that the status quo that has existed in Gaza is not in the national security interests of Israel. It's not in the national security interests of the Palestinian people. It's not in the national security interests of the broader region or, in fact, the world. So we think if you want to see lasting peace, which is our goal and we hope is everyone's goal, including everyone who voted for that resolution, you need to see Hamas removed from authority in Gaza and governance established in Gaza that reflects the legitimate hopes and aspirations of the Palestinian people, and that can eventually lead to the establishment of an independent Palestinian state. With respect to your second question, so we have not made a formal determination to that question. What I believe the president was speaking to, and of course the White House can speak to his exact comments, was the impact of the large-scale bombing campaign that we've seen, where thousands of civilians have been killed. And it's something that we've spoken to, that we have seen too many civilians killed. We understand Israel's intent, but as the secretary has said, what also matters is the results, which is why we have continued to encourage them to take additional steps to protect civilians from harm.
So there is no inquiry or ongoing investigation into whether that has happened?
We continue to monitor what's happening. We continue to collect information at a variety of levels, but I don't have any internal deliberations or processes to speak to.
Yeah, but is there?
I'm just not going to speak to it beyond saying that we continue to monitor and collect information.
Well, does that? Well, but I mean, one could infer from that yes, there is an ongoing process inside the administration, or one could infer from it that there isn't, and it's not something that is being considered. Something that is being considered.
I am just not going to.
As you look at, as you say,
sorry for interrupting.
You're continuing to monitor the situation. But as you continue to monitor the situation, is that something that you're looking at?
So I'm not going to speak to the internal deliberations. I'll say we are monitoring, we collect information, and we continue to engage in conversations with the Israeli government about the importance of adhering to international humanitarian law as they conduct this campaign.
And my last one is because you said that October 7th showed that the status quo in Gaza was not sustainable. But yet, over the last almost decade, you and Israel have done virtually nothing to change the status quo in Gaza.
So I will. Let me speak to that exact question with respect to this administration. So we have, since day one, made clear our policy was the establishment of an independent Palestinian state. And you may recall, Matt, we were planning a trip to the Middle East for the week after the October 7th attacks. And as part of that trip, the secretary was going to visit Saudi Arabia, he was going to visit Israel, and we were going to talk about integration and normalization between those two states. And one of the things that we had planned and put on the table was a very robust package of steps towards an independent Palestinian state. So it has not just been our policy, it is something we were actively working towards in the lead up to October 7th. But again, October 7th has happened. It has changed the landscape of the Middle East. We have made clear that we have a certain set of principles that we think ought to be adhered to going forwards. One of those principles is that Gaza cannot continue to be run by a terrorist organization and used as a launching pad for terrorist attacks against Israel.
What was the Gaza aspect of the that was planned for the discussions with the Saudis and the Israelis?
So I'm not going to get it was a robust package. I'm not going to get into what the details were because obviously we have moved well beyond that.
I know, but when you say that it made clear, October 7th made clear that the status quo in Gaza was not acceptable. What did this plan that you had with the Saudis envision for Gaza?
I'm not going to speak to the details of that plan because again, it has been very well overtaken by events.